Good evening, everybody. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Socorro, Texas. It is January 16, 2024, 5:33 p.m. We call this meeting to order.
Good
Did I
afternoon.
say 2024 or 2023? I'm sorry, 2024. We call this meeting to order.
Thank you, Mr. Arroyos. Now good afternoon, everyone. I'll be taking quorum. Andrew Arroyos,
Here,
Enrique Cisneros,
Here.
David Estrada,
Here.
Julie Dominguez. Here. Osvaldo Reza, absent. Yolanda Rodriguez.
Here.
We have quorum with 5 commissioners present, 1 via Zoom. Moving on to item number 3, notice to the public, open forum. Lisbeth, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
No, we don't.
Thank you. I'm moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve, second by Julie Dominguez. Second by Julie Dominguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain?
I abstain.
Abstain.
Motion carried. Moving on to item number 5, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed final plat for Horizon subdivision located at 10517 Alameda Avenue, being a portion of track 24E, Block 9, Socorro Grant, Socorro, Texas. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Botello, planner with the City of Socorro. Item number 5 on the agenda is the Horizon subdivision final plat. So some general information on this final plat application. The property owner and representatives for this application is Horizon Properties LLC. The lot size is 3.76 acres. The zoning designation is M1, which is light industrial. The current land use is commercial. The future land use map listed this as commercial as well. And the summary of the request for approval of the final plat for Horizon subdivision. Planning and zoning staff recommends approval of the final plat for Horizon subdivision. And the preliminary plat was approved by the P&Z commissioners on November 21st, 2023. And so on the following slide, you'll see the location map. The property being platted is situated between Alameda and Horizon Boulevard. And then followed by the zoning map, you'll see the light purple in the property that denotes the M1 zoning designation for the property. And these are a couple of pictures taken from, the top one was taken from Alameda Avenue. The bottom picture was taken from Horizon Boulevard of the lot currently. And then you'll see the aerial image showing the area of being platted outlined in yellow. And then followed by the preliminary plat that was approved last year, November. And the final plat being taken before you today. And so the summary of the request is for approval of a final plat for Horizon subdivision. And at this time, staff can answer any questions.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve, second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 6, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed final plat resubmission for Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2, located at Nuevo Hueco Tanks Boulevard, being all of track 8, 9, 10A, and 11C, and a portion of track 10A1 and 11C1, Block 5, Socorro Grant, Socorro, Texas. Mr. Botello?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Botello, planner with the City of Socorro. Item number 6 on the agenda is the Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 final plat resubmission. And so some general info on this final plat resubmission application. The property owners are Hunt East Lake Industrial LLC and Socorro Logistics Land LLC. The representative is Mr. Jorge Grajeda. The lot size is 60.74 acres. The current zoning designation for this property is ICMUD, which is Industrial Commercial Mixed Use Developments. The current land use is vacant. The future land use map listed this area as commercial, single-family residential, and medium-density residential. And the summary of the request is for approval of a final plat resubmission for Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 subdivision. The Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 final plat was approved by City Council back on December 1st of 2022. And so the Planning and Zoning staff recommends approval of the Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 final plat resubmission. And so on the next slide on the location map, you'll see that this property is situated along Nuevo Hueco Tanks Boulevard, followed by the zoning map with the purple designation for zoning designation for ICMUD. These are also recent pictures of the property taken from Socorro Logistics Lane. And then you'll see the aerial image showing the property outlined in a thick yellow line. And so this was the original master plan that was submitted back in December of 2022. You can see that there's a large building next to the blue L shape to the left of it. I don't know if you guys can see it. That was what the original intent was. And if you can go to the next slide. That's also the original final plat submission. It was just intended to be one lot, one block, one lot, followed by the page 2. And then in this updated resubmission, the applicants came back, let us know that they were interested in resubmitting because the final plat had not been recorded, so they were still able to resubmit the final plat with the changes requested. And so those changes were a result of splitting the original idea to have one large industrial warehouse and now have 2 warehouses instead of 1. That's the reason for the resubmission. And so this final plat, sheet 1 of 2, shows 2 lots instead of 1. Followed by sheet 2. And so the request is for approval of a final plat resubmission for Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2 subdivision. And at this time, staff can answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So, just kind of the Robert's Rules of Order nerd in me, for the preliminary plat, we've done small changes, but not major changes like this one. But I figure what I'm thinking is that when it's a preliminary plat change, it's just to kind of change how it's going to be designated. I guess my question is it doesn't have to go back to preliminary plat because we're not going from, R1 to commercial industrial. It's still under the same auspices. So that's why we don't have to go back to preliminary. That's why we can go from preliminary that was approved, major change, and then show the major change at the final without having to go back to preliminary. I just wanted to make sure that that's why we're not going back to preliminary. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, sir, that's correct. And then also, if this plat would have been recorded and filed, and at that point it would have been a replat. But because the process to record the final plat, to print the Mylars and bring it to our offices and acquire the signatures necessary, that step was not done, it hasn't not been done, so we're still able to, they're still able to resubmit without having to replat, go through the process of preliminary, like you mentioned. So for that simple fact, it is a resubmission.
And it
That was
would-
my question.
And it would, if I could also add that you would classify this as a minor change, not a major change. The outline of the lot itself hasn't changed. It's only been split in two. That would qualify for a minor change and not necessitate us going back to preliminary.
Okay. And thank you for that. I guess the last question is this: does this still qualify as a lot split, or not so much a final? Does it make a difference that they're splitting the lot? Or I guess they weren't before?
No, it doesn't make a difference because they did comply with all the requirements that are outlined in the municipal code. So as long as they're in compliance, they're still within their ability to resubmit.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
A question regarding the recording of the plat. Did it follow just the normal average timeline, or was there any particular delay? Was there holidays? Is somebody not able to sign for whatever reason?
I think my understanding is that they had a client ready, but for some reason, I guess there was another interested party, looking to build their own warehouse, and so that kind of halted the plans to record the plats, because at that time then it would have been like a replat of Socorro Logistics Center Unit 2, but because that interest came right before that requirement, then they were still able to make that small change.
Okay. I'm good. I mean, I agree. The outline or the perimeter of the original parcel hasn't changed. It's just turning it into two lots. So.
Yeah. So it looks like they're just going from one big piece to two smallers and building two warehouses instead of one.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay.
Any questions?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to approve, second by Andrew Arroyos. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 7, consider and take action on the approval of a proposed replat and variance request for East Wind Industrial Replat A subdivision located at Gateway Boulevard East, being Lot 1, Block 1, and Lot 1, Block 2, East Wind Industrial Subdivision, Socorro, Texas. Mr. Botella?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Botella once again with the City of Socorro. Item number 7 is the East Wind Industrial Replat A subdivision. This is a replat with a variance request. And so some general info on this replat and variance request application. The property owners are El Paso Logistics 2 LLC. The representative is Mr. Adrian I. Olguino Tiveros. The lot size for this development is 185.34 acres. The current zoning designation is also ICMUD, which is Industrial Commercial Mixed Use Developments. The current land use is vacant. The future land use map listed this property as light commercial. And the summary of the request is for approval of a replat, and variance is requested for East Wind Industrial Replat A subdivision. And so the applicant is requesting the following variance. Number one being the reduction in the minimum setbacks requirements for properties facing minor arterials. Number two is a reduction in total number of parking spaces required for development. And number three, an increase in the amounts for the maximum allowable height for buildings in the ICMUD zoning district. And so staff, planning and zoning staff recommends approval of the replat with the variances requested for East Wind Industrial Replat A subdivision. And so you'll see in the location map, this property is situated along I-10 on Gateway Boulevard East. There is plans to make a minor arterial, which would be East Wind. And so the zoning map with, you can see the property in purple, showing the ICMUD zoning designation. These are pictures of the property currently taken from Gateway Boulevard East, followed by the aerial image outlining the property with the yellow line. And so this is also the master plan that was originally submitted. The area in red is what's being replatted. The intent was to have an industrial development. And so on this lot, on this portion of the lot, that middle line is the East Wind. And so to the left is what is being replatted. And this is the original plat. There was 2 lots that were platted for East Wind Industrial. And so the updated submission for the master plan shows 3 warehouses, which is what the intent was previously, but they're oriented a little bit differently. And so they're replatting so that they can build 1 warehouse per lot. And so you can see in the preliminary plat that there's 5 lots in that area. And then to the right of East Wind, there's 2 lots also being replatted. And then, if you can move to the next slide. Sorry, the next one. So the variance request, this is what was submitted. As previously mentioned, so the code requires for parking spaces, section 46-631 of our codes require 1 parking space per 500 square feet, And so the request is to allow 1 space per 2,000 square feet so that they can reduce the amount of parking spaces necessary for this development. For the setback requirement, I don't know if you can go to the next slide, please. It's kind of hard to see. I thought it was going to be a little bit clearer, but since they're building a minor arterial, East Wind Avenue, they require a 55-foot setback from the beginning of the right-of-way. And so the warehouses that they're proposing to build are slightly abutting that setback requirement, I believe, by 7 or 8 feet. And so that's one of the variances that is being requested. And the third one, the height restrictions on section 46-451 of our codes limit the height to 45 feet. And I know these elevations are kind of small, but the applicants are requesting a variance to allow a higher limit for these developments to 55 feet to accommodate for, I guess what is becoming like a standard for industrial warehouses to have a higher clearance space. And so, in summary, the request is for approval of replat and variance is requested for East Wind Industrial Replat A subdivision. and at this time, staff can answer any questions.
So I have a question. Is this property, it looks like there's a residential area that is butted up against these warehouses? Is that what I'm looking at on the right-hand side?
Yes, yes, ma'am. I believe that residential subdivision is right outside our city limits.
So it's not in the city of Socorro?
It's, no, correct, yes, ma'am. It's not in
It's
the
in the
city.
city of El Paso?
It's in El Paso County.
It's in El Paso County. Okay, and then on the left-hand side, is that also a residential on the, like, maybe toward the front? Is that residential also?
Across from I-10?
Yeah, across, on this side. Is that across from I-10? No, I-10 is on the other side. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm talking about that right there. Is that residential?
Okay, see, I think that's a mixture of agricultural. There is a few residential lots, and I think in regards for the rezoning, they were notified
Okay.
back when this rezoning took place, and as you can see, the rezoning was approved because they need that ICMUD zoning designation to be able to for them to be allowed to build any sort of warehouses or industrial developments. And so, yes.
And said those people were notified and they received letters, and do we know when we did that?
That's also in the ETJ. Would they have been notified? They would have been notified they're outside of the city limits?
That's a good question. There were notifications sent. That's part of the requirements for rezoning. To be honest, that happened prior to when I worked at the city, but that's something I can look into if you.
So this replot here has happened some time back?
The planning process, yes, it occurred. The rezoning occurred, I believe sometime in 2022.
In 22?
Yes, and then the property, I believe, was platted late 2022, early 2023. And then they came back to replat to further divide those two lots.
Question, that street that runs right in the middle, that's the one that'll connect to North Loop in the future, correct?
Yes, yes, sir, correct.
Okay, where would that street be that you say is gonna connect down to North Loop?
If you go to the zoning map, you can see it's zoomed out a little farther. There you go.
Right, yeah, so
Oh,
I don't know if you can see the
okay. This one
cursor.
right here.
That would be the connection where the minor arterial would connect to I-10, and it's supposed to run south and connect to North Loop. You can't really see the road on this zoning map, but
It
that's.
was brought up on another, one of the zonings, correct?
Yes, sir.
A couple of months ago? I
Yeah,
think?
it was for Eastwind Hills. There's a development directly to the north, another industrial development. And so we included a larger view of from I-10 to North Loop of how it was gonna connect.
Okay.
So that right away for Eastwind Avenue doesn't change from what we were presented back then, that dedicated right away?
Correct.
It's not changing today, they're not changing that, they're just subdividing the parcel,
Yes, sir, correct.
okay?
But I guess as a point of clarification, we're voting on the variance.
Right.
I guess, how many lanes is that road?
I'm sorry, Mr. Adrian Orguino Tiveros is also here. He's representing the applicants for this replat.
Okay, well, I'll save some questions for him right now. Mr. Boteo, so we're going from the regular is 55 because it's an arterial connecting from I-10 to North Loop. If it was a smaller residential, it'd be 5 feet, a big major arterial is 55 feet. Is there another, what would be the other city code in the middle of that?
So for any property, these setback requirements don't change depending on the zoning that we're looking at, because as long as the property is abutting minor arterial, major arterial, a collector street, it's either 35 feet, 55 feet, or 60 feet for major arterials. So if your property sits, next to that right-of-way, then the city asks you to maintain that setback requirement, right? And so it doesn't really, I guess, in a sense, matter what the zoning designation is, as long as, if your property is abutting either a collector street, minor arterial, major arterial, those requirements are also always supposed to be enforced for the setbacks.
Okay, so we're going from 55 to 7 or 8 feet, right? Is what we're,
No, the encroachment, the way the development plan shows the warehouses, they're encroaching that 55-foot setback about 7 or 8 feet. And so they're asking
okay.
to reduce the setback requirement from 55 feet to 45 so that they have that room to, to build within that setback requirement.
so they're going from, so they're supposed to be, the dream is you're supposed to be 55 feet away from the major arterial. Let's say they're, 48, 45? Is that kind of what?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's more or less where they're proposing to build starting to propose the warehouse.
Okay. And then what's the length of, what would be the variance on that? Well, like how much of that road? Is it a couple hundred meters that it runs down that road?
It would be the full frontage of the warehouse. Let me see if I can see.
And I guess the variance is from I-10, right? Or is it the variance from the road running north and south?
Yeah, the variance would be requested from Eastwind, which is
Okay,
the road running north and south.
okay. Okay, and then my next question is the other variance is for the parking, which this is all gonna be, that'll be a question for the developer or the representative. My understanding is that all of this is gonna be warehousing. And if, I don't know anything, I don't know much about warehousing, but I imagine that you're mostly stocking goods and then they're in and out. That's probably why you don't need as much parking for warehousing. I guess my question for the developer is, what's the future purpose of this building?
Hi, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Adrian Ontiveros with CSA Design Group for the record. So to answer your question, so the intent is to, I guess, sell portions of these buildings out, similar to what's being performed out here in El Paso. Basically, they're building these buildings for future sale. You have different vendors who come in, but essentially, yes, it is a light industrial application. At the end of the day, the parking that we're requesting falls more in line with what is typical in other parts of the nation. What is written in the code here is a little extreme compared to other parts, which is why we're requesting a reduction in parking. But yes, to answer your question, they are basically in and out. It's mostly warehouse, light warehouse applications that are performed in those buildings.
Very good. Do you have any contracts for future sale once these are completed?
So yeah, similar to, we actually, the developer actually did a project just north, well, it would be north of this project site. Similar building, similar deal. It was in El Paso County, and the instant they put this out on the market, it was pretty much sold.
Okay. And the variance that thank you, sir, thank you for those answers. Mr. Boteo, so we're going from, can you go over the difference in the parking one more time, please?
Yes, sir. So our codes require, and you can look it up on section 46-631. The parking requirements that are listed specify that one parking space should be provided per 500 square feet.
Uh-huh.
And so when you consider the size of the warehouses, that would drastically reduce the building's footprint. And so
Uh-huh.
the intent is to request, lighter requirement from 500 square feet to 2,000 square feet so that, they're able to provide a larger footprint for this warehouse and not have so much of a requirement for the parking spaces that we ask for in our codes.
I guess what I'm worried about is the unintended consequences if this building is sold in the future to any type of manufacturing where you do have a workforce coming in and out every day, where they are going to require more parking, that it's going to inundate that artery. I guess I would ask the planning and zoning director if there's any, which I don't know if there is or if there isn't, is there anything that we could put on the variance where, hey, we'll approve it so long as it's for warehousing, if it changes to manufacturing, where there'll be a higher workforce coming in and out every day. Yeah, I don't think we could tie anything to that.
So
Am I
you could
correct, or?
possibly place a condition on a certificate of occupancy. If the certificate of occupancy changes, the parking requirements could be addressed again. If for example, the use changed from a warehouse to manufacturing and they didn't require all of those bays, maybe a lot of that parking could be converted to automotive, your auto parking, and then the larger tractor trailer parkings that they have currently could also be reduced to accommodate for more parking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for the developer and the developer representative, we're all in favor of development. We want the big project. We want them to come. Variances are always kind of a very questionable, hesitant part of the changes. I don't really have an issue with the height variance or the setback variance in this situation. Yeah, if the planning and zoning director could give us a suggestion on how we could tie the occupancy certificate to the parking variance so that we give code compliance the tools they need in the future if that changes. Because again, just my logic tells me, hey, logistically, what you do in warehousing is very different demand from something in manufacturing where you have a larger workforce coming in every day.
Yes, so I have just one additional comment. So we performed a full TIA for this project, this whole development, which was submitted alongside with the plat application and so forth. Everything in that TIA says we're good to go with a light warehouse application only. So I don't think there's any intent to do any manufacturing on this development. This outfit is nationwide. They do this in all parts of the country, and it's all warehouse applications, I can assure you. I understand the concern if uses change. I do not expect that, and if the developer or their representative, they are on the call as well if they want to add anything.
Well, if it's not going to change, then again, tying it to a certificate of occupancy shouldn't be an issue. my concern is we're going from, we're asking for a reduction of, 4 times of what we usually ask for anybody else. So that's what I'm concerned with. And again, we're supportive, we're open for development, but that's my concern, to give, code compliance or the city of Socorro any tools that they need in the future to help them with that. So yeah, I would ask the director if she can give us any, verbiage that we should include if the body deems that they want to vote that way.
So I have a question for the developer. When you say light industrial, commercial, would you consider manufacturing light industrial, commercial?
Well, manufacturing is a little more intense
Okay.
than what they would be performing here at the
Okay,
site.
because if that was the case, then you would have to come back or planning and zoning would have to come back and rezone that property for
So
manufacturing?
So the element that is unique to this development is the zoning, ICMUD.
Uh-huh.
So this industrial commercial zoning district was introduced when the city of Socorro removed M1 and M2. So they are tied to this development plan that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time and City Council at the time. A major change to this development plan could be a major change in the land use. As proposed, the use was attached to the zoning. If it changes, then it would probably require a change to the development plan.
Okay.
And that could be determined by the planning and zoning director, whoever that person might be in the future, to say, you have now stepped away from what this development plan intended, and you have to present something for us to review and reconsider.
Okay.
So that could be an element where it does have to get addressed should the use change, should the development plan change.
Okay.
Be that development plan being tied to this use and this property.
Okay.
If I can add one more thing, if you're considering, approving any of the variances, I think we just need to be kind of specific on what the variance is being granted for. So when you go through it, if you're voting on it, you say, well, to make it easy, you could probably say based on staff recommendations, but we need to make it clear when it goes to city council that, it's the height variance is approved for an additional 10 feet. The, setback requirement is approved for additional 8 feet or whatever it is, just so we know what exactly was approved. Because if you just put approved height variance, it could be anything. It could be 60 feet tall.
Okay, so in working on the verbiage, please let me know if anybody wants to jump in. So me personally, I don't have an issue with the setback variance. What are we looking, what should we approve it? 8 feet, 10 feet? Mr. Botello, what are they requesting?
The request is for 10 feet.
10 feet, okay. And then for the height variance,
10 feet as well.
10 feet, okay. The only issue I have, or kind of what comes to mind, is if I was making a motion right now, my motion would be to approve the variance with the 10-foot setback, the 10-foot height variance. What I'm looking for is some guidance on how we can approve the parking variance as it is today, tied to the occupancy certificate. As more parking is needed, how do they address that, or what tools can we give the city to address that into the future?
I think what you may be able to do is just to say that if you're approving that variance, that it's based on the development plans that were submitted to the city, so that if it does ever change, they'd have to come back. Does that sound right?
How
But
much was the height, I'm sorry, how much was the height?
And,
again?
and this is just me thinking about that is, then the entire development plan would have to change for that to have to, in order for the city to have the ability to change anything? Not necessarily the occupancy certificate?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, well, the occupancy goes really more towards the number of people in the building, right?
The use,
The
if the use were to ever change, the occupants were to change, that would be a trigger to review the development plan, if it's still in line with the development plan of warehouse use. And if it didn't align with that, and it was a major change of occupancy requiring different parking requirements, then the development plan would change, and then they would have to discuss how to reach that required parking.
Okay, the parking lot variance approved so long as, and again, if somebody has better verbiage, please let me know.
As it complies with the approved development plan, use is outlined in the approved development plan.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I'm ready to make a motion if nobody else has any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question regarding the number of parking spaces. I'm understanding that you're asking for one parking space for every 2,000 square feet of building, of area. So when you say parking space, I'm thinking like for a regular sized automobile. How does the truck parking, like the larger 18-wheeler parking, is that factored into parking spaces as well, or how does that work? How do you determine the number of truck stalls? Does that have anything to do with the parking spaces that we're talking about? Because I'm looking at this sheet right here, right? And so automobile parkings are up here, but the truck stalls are down here. And so how does the truck stalls factor into the equation? Like the literal equation?
The
of how-
bays for the trucks are separate,
Yes, there's,
right? And then the
So-
parking are for,
yes, so the parking count is intended for the employee parking. The truck count, the truck parking is intended solely for the end use of the building itself. So
And
that's
so-
a separate count.
It's a separate, it's not included into the equation of
That is
one
correct.
parking space for every 2,000 square feet.
That is correct.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready to make a motion. I make a motion to approve, along with the variance for a 10-foot setback variance, or to give leeway for a 10 feet setback variance. Also make a motion, I guess we have to do it individually or all at once?
all at once is fine.
Okay. And then the motion includes to approve a 10-foot variance for a height variance. And thirdly, that the parking variance be approved so long as it complies with the approved development plan. Is that all correct?
Yeah, and then you just want to say, and the parking variance is for 2,000 square feet per.
One per,
One parking per 2,000 square feet.
One parking spot for 2,000 square.
Very good. So to amend that, the parking lot variance, approval for the parking lot variance, so long as it complies with the approved development plan, which is 1 parking spot for every 2,000 square feet. Period.
Okay, before anyone makes a second, when you say a 10-foot variance, for example, on the setback, I understand that the variance that you're asking for is reducing the setback, the existing setback by 10 feet. But I think it's confusing. I think we should say the minimum setback would be 45 feet. And then a
Okay.
maximum height of the building, which is, what's the requirement right now?
45.
45.
So the variance is 10 feet, but we should state it as a maximum height of 55 feet. And
Right.
that
Okay.
way, we can avoid the confusion.
Okay, let me withdraw my motion and restart again. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I make a motion to approve, with the approval of a 45-foot setback, with the approval of a 45-foot setback variance. Make the motion to approve the height variance with the max, let me withdraw that and start again. Make a motion to approve the following variances. Approve a maximum 45-foot setback. Make a motion to approve for a maximum height, 55-foot height variance. And we make a motion to approve the parking lot variance, so long as it complies with the approved development plan, which is one parking spot for every 2,000 square feet.
I think it needs to be a minimum 45-foot setback.
Front, front.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for that. Let me remove my motion and start again. And thank you for that, David. So my motion is to approve the variance, the setback variance to a minimum,
Minimum.
which one was it? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Minimum.
Minimum,
Minimum
Okay.
45-foot front setback.
a minimum 45-foot setback, and then a maximum height variance of 55 feet, and a parking lot variance approved so long as it complies with the approved development plan, which is one parking spot for every 200 square feet, 2,000 square feet.
Second?
I second.
Yes.
Okay, now it's my turn. So I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to approve the request of the variance setback of a maximum of 45 feet front.
Minimum.
I apologize. The request of the setback 45 minimum front. Am I reading that correctly? I apologize. I'm gonna start one more time. I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to approve the request setback variance to a minimum of 45, the height variance to a maximum of 55 feet, the variance to approve parking so long as it complies with the approved development plan of one parking per 2,000 square feet. Second by David Estrada. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 8, consider and take action on the election of officers for Planning and Zoning Commission. Do I have a motion?
I'm good with leaving everything as we are right now.
Me too.
I second.
Well, that wasn't a motion. I didn't make a motion, I'm just saying, okay. But, what do you guys think?
As of right now, the chairman is Andrew Arroyos, and the first vice chairman is Enrique Cisneros. Second vice chairman is David Estrada. And secretary, Judith Rodriguez. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to stay the way we are and with staff recommendations, if there's any.
I second.
I have a motion made by Julie Dominguez to approve to approve elected commissioners as staff recommendation,
As is.
as is. And second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number 9, consider and take action on the bylaws of Planning and Zoning Commission. Do I have a motion?
I have a quick question. Or, we're-
I'll let Chairman, if you, Mr. Boteo just wanted to say a couple of items on that, but Mr. Estrada had a question.
okay, well, they might be addressed, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Jose Boteo, planner with the City of Socorro. So for item number 9, consider and take action on the bylaws of the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is your opportunity to make any changes to the bylaws. I believe this is an annual occurrence. And so, if you see that there's anything that should be changed that, or you would want to add, for the bylaws, this would be, the opportunity to do so.
We also don't have to make those changes right now. We can table this. Everybody can take a look at the bylaws, look them over, and we can place it on the agenda. We can table it. We can revisit it once we're ready to address any changes that you might want to recommend. But at this time, planning and zoning staff do not make any recommendations for changes to the bylaws.
Okay, quick question. There's a highlight in blue here. I think that was last year's change, I think. But I just want to make sure that wasn't a change that you're suggesting right now. I don't, it's on page 2 of 10.
Letter G.
I think that's carrying over from last year's change, I think. Is that correct?
Okay, yes, they're confirming it. I was not here at that time, but we
Okay.
can verify. Okay.
Yes, yeah, that was changed in the previous year,
Okay.
So it'll stay as is.
Mhm.
unless you want to change it back to whatever it was. And I don't remember what it was before.
Well, it was 3 consecutive unexcused absences, and we were voting whether everyone was excused or unexcused.
Right.
And so we changed that to 3 consecutive absences, whether they were excused or not. So we're not voting on whether or not it's an excused absence or not.
I think that issue in the previous years too is that we used a hard time getting people to show up, but that really hasn't been an issue, I think.
No,
That's right.
everybody's good. Although I was absent the last 2.
We're good, I'm good.
Hold on, we need to write that one. We're counting.
You're counting, you're tallying.
Good, I'm good with everything that's on.
I'm good, I'm familiar, unless we want to table so that it can,
Right, so we would vote to approve it as is, and we can come in anytime, reality to.
That's right, yeah, you can approve it now if you want to, and if you want to revisit and do a change, you can. So.
Well, I'm good as it is. As is.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good with the way it is.
Mr. David?
I'm good.
As is.
Mrs. Dennis? I make a motion to approve the way they are right now.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws as is, and second by Julie Dominguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Consider and take action on the 2024 meeting calendar.
I'm good with it too.
I'm good.
I'm good with that, if anybody else wants to chime in.
I'm clear.
Looks okay.
Looks good?
Looks good.
Yes, I'm fine with the
Mr.
way it is.
Cisneros, you okay with it?
Looks good, yes, sir.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the 2024 meeting calendar.
I second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to approve a 2024 meeting calendar, second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Item number,
Can we interject, Yadira, and ask the chair to please reopen item number 7? A comment was made during the chat that specifically the replat itself was not approved. We approved all of the variances, but no reference to approving the actual replat was made. So if we could just make that motion to approve the replat, if the commission so desires.
Okay, make a
Okay,
motion.
here-
So
here-
does he have to make it, or can I make it?
It can be a separate motion?
you can make it.
Yeah, you just make a motion to reopen item number 7.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reopen item 7.
Second.
Yes. I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to open item number 7, second by David Estrada. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried.
Mr. Cisneros would have to make that.
Oh, Yes, sir. I'd like to, sorry. So let me just put it all together, that way
You don't have to.
nobody has any issues. So I make a motion to approve the replat with the following variances, with the minimum, a minimum variance of 45 feet for the setback, a maximum approval variance of maximum 55 feet height, and approval for the parking variance approval so long as it complies with the approved development plan, which is 1 parking spot for every 2,000 square feet.
Okay, so I have a motion made, any second?
Who
I
seconded
second.
last time?
Okay, I have a motion made by Enrique Cisneros to approve replat, to approve the request of setback variance to a 45 minimum front setback, a height variance to a maximum of 55 feet in height, the variance to approve parking so long as it complies with the approved development plan, 1 parking per 2,000 square feet. All those in favor of the motion? And second by Yolanda Rodriguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. And moving on to item 11, Planning and Zoning Commissioner Report. Commissioners?
Mr. David?
Okay, so I'm gonna bring this up because I've heard a couple people, just friends, family, associates that live within Socorro have made a few comments, and so I'm curious on getting the opinion from Ms. Camito and the staff, basically. So Socorro's, I think, thriving in the sense that there's a lot of new subdivisions coming in, single families, which is great, business, rental property owners, and of course, a lot of warehousing is coming in. And so I think personally it's just the beginning regarding warehousing. Whatever's happening out there, I think we're uniquely located, right? We're right off of Port of Entry, right off of Loop 375 and I-10. And so we're seeing all these warehouses coming in, which personally I think is a good thing for just, keep Socorro growing, basically. But the comments that I've heard is that, whoa, we're getting way too much warehousing, way too fast. And I'm telling them it's just the beginning, guys, I think. And so I'm curious to know what everyone else thinks on the commission, and then what you guys think. Is there a point where you would recommend a no, basically? Because a lot of these are getting approved with variances, and which I'm fine with it. But is there a point where is Socorro saturated? Is it just way too many warehouses? Does it completely change the character of Socorro? One of the big comments that I heard was, they're wanting to remove pecan orchards and come in with warehousing. And so with warehousing, but there's a lot of pros and cons, but one of the big cons is the infrastructure regarding tractor trailers and, the larger semi trucks. And so I'm curious to hear everyone's opinion and what everybody thinks. And my biggest one is do you foresee it, a recommendation of denial on any new warehousing at some point? And what would be the reasoning behind it?
So we're at a really great time to have that discussion with the entire community as we are developing our comprehensive plan.
Mm-hmm.
The meeting that we have internally scheduled with the consultants is this week. We are going to lay out the plan and the dates for the next big public meeting. And it would be great to see how we can incorporate that conversation with the people at our public meeting. If it maybe makes sense to have more than one large public meeting in different areas to have those discussions. One, at one point, is something too much. Two, conservation of the historical, agricultural. Are we ready for conversations around conservation districts? Agricultural entities like farmers, they have their challenges as well. So it's how do we balance these needs for growth and expansion with the need to protect and preserve our cultural resources, our heritage. This is the perfect time to be having that conversation with lots of folks and put that in the comprehensive plan so that we as a community can tie it to something. If at large, everyone or the majority of the community believes that these efforts that you're just, or that we want to set that threshold for, this is where we want the warehousing. We have the land use, the future land use map. This is where we want conservation districts. This is what we're willing to put forward to help meet the challenges that farmers face, such as labor shortages, water shortages, because those challenges exist and they're having to take on those burdens, the ups and downs of that on their own. For you to bring that up at this time is absolutely perfect. And if all of those people who you are talking to can come to these public meetings for the comprehensive plan, interject those ideas. What they're going to come back with, what Matrix is going to come back to us with at these public meetings is what they got from the surveys, what they've got from the preliminary meetings. Put those together in the plan and then bring back some projects, priorities, policies, goals, this future land use map. And then it is up to, once we review that, have any other comments that we want to add, and then with a final draft take for your recommendation, then take that recommendation to City Council for approval. And then moving forward, we can go ahead and with confidence say no, that, or yes or no, that does or doesn't align with what the community has outlined in the future plan for the city in Socorro 2040, our comprehensive plan.
So I have a question. So I think the concern, because we get it. I mean, you talk to people and they tell you, okay, what's going on? All these warehouses are going up. And we're right. We don't have the infrastructure to handle tractor trailers, especially if they're going to go down Horizon and they hit Alameda. Because in Alameda, you have a bottleneck because you're going down You're going down to Loop or you're going down to Fabens in the other direction. And I think that I think his question is at one point, then the city, not so much the comprehensive plan, but the city has to say, okay, so many thousands of square feet of warehouses, and this is our limitation. We have to stop right here. And I think your real estate people that are coming in, they're also looking at selling or buying a bunch of agricultural area, and the first thing that goes up is a warehouse. So I think that if we want to keep our businesses within the city of Socorro, we have to weigh and say there has to be restaurants, there has to be entertainment, and we don't have any of that. We're going up that way to go do that now, because we don't have it down here.
Yeah, but I would offer that that's the correction, that the city, that's the tool that the city has to make those assertions, to make that stand and say,
Warehouses.
this is
right.
where that limit is, this is where this limit is, and this is where this, and this is where we want to encourage this. This is where we want, this is what we want to protect, this is what we want to, where we want to grow. And don't forget that the comprehensive plan encompasses all of these things that we're discussing right now: transportation, our land use, housing. How are we going to? What do we want as a community? What do we want Socorro to look like in the future? And how are we going to get there? What are the tools we need to get there? How do we encourage the things that we want to see more of? How do we encourage things to grow in the direction that the community, would, the city, neighborhoods, individuals would like to go?
So if we're looking at a comprehensive plan that is being developed today, and we're looking at 20 years from today in 2040, I think our focus, I mean, and this is what I think, is that if we're looking at a comprehensive plan, we want to look at a comprehensive plan that within the next 5 years, we don't want a bunch of warehouses. In 2040, yes, maybe by then we'd be more developed, our streets they would have a better infrastructure. But I think that we're moving really fast with warehousing. They're popping up everywhere, okay? And I think that when you have residents that are living here and they're saying, okay, we just did, 100 acres of just warehouses when we could have had restaurants, we could have had entertainment, we could have had something different, I think. And then, yes, you get the question from all your neighbors to say, we're gonna be bumping into tractor trailers everywhere. And that's because those warehouses aren't even open yet, the ones that are off of Nuevo Hueco. They're still idle. So imagine traffic coming down that way, going down North Loop up to, 375. You're gonna be backed up. It's already backed up in the mornings. And I think that at one point the city has to say that, because other cities have done it where, every 3 blocks, you can't have another dollar store. You can't have another general dollar store, because that's what we're popping up right now, And I think that there has to be a plan for the city as a whole to say that there has to be rules and procedures before we get to a comprehensive plan.
So
And that's
just kind
just
of as
what
a
I'm-
point of clarification, the only time that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City of Socorro can say no to a developer or to a property owner is, and please correct me, Mr. Body, if I'm right, or correct me if I'm wrong. The only tool that we can use to say no to future warehousing when we get to a point where the city no longer wants it is the comprehensive plan, correct?
That's correct, and it's the zoning sorry. That's
Yeah.
yes to that question. It is the future land use plan, and we make reference to it when we introduce zoning changes, because what we're doing when we ask for a zoning change is a change to the future land use map. So the comprehensive plan is not just looking out to 2040, it's because it's comprehensive plan to 2040, it's the short-term, midterm, and long-term steps that we need to take to get there. And those decisions are in the plan, and we can, in the plan, after this discussion with the community and whoever wants to come out and be a part of that conversation, put that land use map together. So for example, that comprehensive plan from 2014 outlined that area of Socorro Logistics as this mixed single-family, medium-density residential area with commercial retail. But at some point between then and now, that zoning changed, even after the recommendation was made for that residential lighter use. That Planning and Zoning Commission approved that change. City Council then approved that change.
So just to reiterate, it's one of the most important tools that we have in our toolbox to make changes that we want as a city. So, and they're, for me, they're super interesting. But, so I think that anybody that can should attend, because once that's a comprehensive plan, it gets, then to make any changes, it's very difficult. So now's a great time to participate. So yes.
And then additionally, sorry,
what?
go ahead. No, just additionally, once we get that and we identify those areas that we want to encourage the residential, retail, other type of, as Mr. Representative Cruz at a recent city council meeting recommended that staff investigate how we can incorporate into the comprehensive plan a little more of the variety of retail that could, how can we encourage the type of development that you're suggesting for that extension of Nuevo Hueco tanks that's still not developed yet. We have the one, restaurant toward the upper end, closer to the interstate, and then the bottom at the intersection of North Loop and Nuevo Hueco tanks. There's going to be a gas station. So far, that's the development that we've seen come in for that strip, and maybe we can still catch encouraging a little more direction if we put together a focused, smaller plan for that area. And then
And
that work
just to add to Mr. Estrada's point, in my view, I think we need to also start adding a lot of that retail space, commercial space, not only for our enjoyment, but all, because we want it and we need it and we need that sales tax revenue. But if we can take advantage of all this major warehousing and all of the employees that are going to be there, the jobs that are going to be generated, I think that's a great way to soften the transition from major industrial, light commercial, retail spaces, and then into the residential. So yeah, I know that my wife and I will be participating and we'll be looking out for that, and I think everybody else should participate as well.
If I can add just a couple of things, I can draw this out, but just, some of the attorneys only look at really the legal side of it, not really the policy. That's not really in my purview, but there are legal limits to what you can do, what you cannot do. One of the things is that, really you're looking at applications that are coming through here. So for rezonings, for preliminary plats, final plats. To answer your question on some things like, let's say it's warehousing and it's a preliminary final plat. Those, and I think we've gone through this in the past on some other meetings, but those have a very specific list in the Texas Local Government Code and the city ordinances that says you can only consider these 12 factors. And it doesn't say anything specific about warehousing. It's like, did you submit like a survey or a plan, and did you submit an engineering plan that has a stamp, that sort of stuff. So it's very kind of detailed. One of the things too is that, you always want to be careful, and I can kind of say this because there's no applicants here, but you want to be careful in saying what you like and dislike, although that's what you think. I get that, because that's really your opinion, and that's what you kind of bring to the commission. But you always want to be careful, because you've got different people sitting here or listening online, and so sometimes if they think they're not getting a fair shake, that you made up your mind before they even came in here. Oh, like, I don't like developers, or I don't like, warehousing guys. I don't like farmers. Well, then they're going to say, you didn't even read my application or hear the presentation. So I didn't get a fair chance, and then they could later on challenge the city of Socorro or bring legal action saying that they didn't get a fair opportunity for a hearing. So you always want to at least give them a chance to hear them out, and you may have a certain viewpoint, but you just gotta be really careful how you express it sometimes. Like I said, you're free to vote however you want, but you just don't want to give them a reason to say, hey, you didn't even listen to me or hear my opinion on it, or ask me questions. So you always want to give them a chance, and also, I think we talked about this in the past, but if somebody's here and they want to speak, and, you know, I think this, actually 99% of the time it's not a problem, but give them a chance to speak, or if somebody, and that's why we go through the list to see if somebody signed up to speak, or we have the public hearing part. That's really the part. And so, yeah, you want to be, you're like a judge, and you want to be neutral when somebody comes. But I understand what you're saying on what can you do as a community on issues like warehousing. So there are other things you can do, is that you can go to city council yourself and participate there, you can throw planning and zoning, bring up your issues, or with the local, I guess, the district person that appointed you. There's also the ordinance changes that come throughout the year. Right now, Loren's working on actually a bigger update on all the ordinances. And that also ties into the comprehensive plan as well. But that comprehensive plan, like Loren was saying, was the best way to do it longer term. We like this, we don't like X, Y, and Z. So, you know, that's really the way to do it. So I usually won't comment too much, but just on the legal side, there's limits. And also, you just kind of remember too that although the city can do certain things, it's not just City of Socorro, but any city. You have some control over what happens in the city. Some of it also is, a lot of it is, people are also, when they're landowners, they can do what they want with their land, within legal limits. So for instance, I think there was a question on if somebody got rid of their trees and wanted to put up a warehouse. Well, if I'll give you a kind of an analogy, but like if I own a property, I have 100 pecan trees on it, I can cut down all of them, with or without your permission or my neighbor's permission. Or the city, I'll just do it. Now, you know, I can't rezone it and then put up a warehouse, because they still need to come here. But so there's limits on, you can do with your property what you feel like doing, which is legal. I mean, if you wanted to bulldoze your home, you can bulldoze your home, right? Nobody can stop you. Although there might be
You might need a permit.
You might need a permit, actually. But so there's limits on what you can tell people what to do with their own private properties. And that's really, you know, it's a constitutional right, Texas and United States constitutions. And also you can sell your property to whoever you want. So any land sale really, I mean, I can sell it to a developer. Now what you're seeing here usually is that they're in the process of selling it. And then they're trying to get it rezoned before they buy it, or get a replat done or something. That's why it comes here and then you see it. And that can affect the sale. But otherwise, you know, you're free to sell your personal home to anybody you feel like. And you can sell commercial property to whoever you feel like. It's just that if that change in use or something happens that triggers something, then it comes back here. So that's just something to keep in mind too, is that, you know, a lot of people, they do have rights to use their property, and whether or not you like what it is sometimes, but there are certain things like that do come through here, and that's what you see, so.
What's the timeline for a completed plan, comprehensive?
The end of summer.
The end of summer, okay. Good. Okay. I'm processing what you said, everything that you said. Yeah, okay, so quick story. I have a relative who purchased 5 acres outside of Austin, close to a small suburb. It's within the city of a small town. And I think it was Sony and Panasonic built something like 40,000 square foot within the county. It's not, and so my cousin said he's in the storage business, and so he bought his parcel within the city limits of that small town. He's been battling planning and zoning over there and city council for about 2 years already, where the small town is saying absolutely not. They have no say on what got built in county with Sony going in and 40,000 square feet of warehouse or whatever. But within that city limit, that small town, they want nothing to do with anything.
Oh, no.
Anything. And so my cousin at that point, well, he should have done more research, right? But it's going on 2 years and he can't get past planning and zoning to, you know, so I thought I'd share that because it's a big difference here
Absolutely.
in Socorro.
Yeah, because I know that
Which is a
I've
good
seen
thing.
it, where the city will mandate what can and cannot be built, you know, in other cities. And this is why I made that comment, is that I think that it's important when we have our city that is growing so fast, and it's mostly industrial right now, you know. Yes, a lot of residential has popped up, and it's usually it's going down that way now. And I think it's important that we make note that there has to be some kind of control, you know, or we will get taken over.
I'll tell you, because we kind of monitor with planning and zoning as well as that, you know, the legislature in Texas comes out with new laws each year that go into effect typically in September, and they're usually developer friendly. That's just because that's who has the lobbyists in Austin that pay for it, and so, because they just made a change, I think it was the first time we had it in December, where you can opt out, I think, what was it, opt out of? The ETJ, and get out of any kind of regulation whatsoever, and we dealt with that in December actually at the city. So first time I had seen it. And there's law firms now that are specializing in helping developers get out of these certain things. And they passed laws in Texas recently. I think it went into effect September. You know, so these things are constantly changing each year, and preliminary and final plats, because that's a big thing what you guys do is approving those. That had changed, I think, in 2017, and I think I was working with the city of Socorro on that one. We had to change the city ordinances immediately, because they then said you can almost not deny it if they meet those 12, 13 factors. And they figured out that a lot of planning and zoning commission in different smaller cities would just say, oh, you know, we'll postpone it to next time, we'll look at it again, or you didn't have X, Y, and Z. So they changed and said, if you don't take action on 30 days within when the application comes, automatically admitted or approved. And the city council doesn't take action from there, automatically approved. And we've had to deal with that, I think, last year. So, you know, it's just one thing is that you're kind of dealing with the state is always kind of fighting cities on it.
So just to clarify, you said that an owner in an ETJ can opt out and say, I don't want to be in the ETJ? So the landowner,
Ask to be released from the ETJ and not have to meet the requirements.
and therefore he doesn't have to come,
Yeah, and that just changed this last fall because there was some control that the cities had, and the city of Socorro deals with this typically because there's, you know, properties that are right there in the ETJ, but that just changed, and I think came to city council for the first time in December, and they had to deal with that. And again, the answer on that is the city can't say no. There's no really choice. I think the city council on that particular vote just took no action in December. But then the no action also means it's approved, they're out. And all they have to do is just file an application, set it for hearing with city council, and that's it. I mean, it's not gonna hurt, so.
okay. Learn something.
But you guys are fighting a good fight, so I don't wanna discourage you.
I think the most important about the comprehensive plan for the city of Socorro is that you don't have the community as we would like them to be involved. And I think that's a big thing, is that even this last comprehensive meeting, there were maybe 35 of us here? You know, there was hardly anybody, you know. And I think that when you look at those, then you tell yourself, okay, we're not gonna get anywhere, because nobody is doing their input except us that voice our opinions, you know. And when we talked about the 2014, if the 2014 comprehensive plan had been developed then, and that plan said it was gonna be residential and retail, and we didn't follow it, it still went to planning and zoning, and it still went to city council, and we overrode that comprehensive plan. So then I think that we're not being as effective as we should be to follow a comprehensive plan that was developed 10 years ago. Because now we're stuck with, we can change it, we can develop it, you can write it, but we're not gonna follow it. and I think that's also important.
I'll tell you, like, on those longer-term things, especially in the comprehensive plan, I think it's tough for a city to forecast even. They write it, they come up with
Absolutely.
it, but you never know that an Amazon warehouse is gonna
Absolutely.
go up, and then everything kind of change after that. I mean, even, I'll tell you that on the, like, the ICMUD ordinances, I helped rewrite those whenever those went into effect. We didn't know, because had not dealt with in Socorro, that the height ordinances actually kind of matter. Whatever foot, 40 feet was picked, or 45. Didn't know that, okay, that's still kind of shorter on site, because those buildings weren't really being erected. So now there's a lot more of them, and you're probably gonna see a lot more variance requests. I mean, it's just something that the city didn't have experience with, and so it changes over time,
I agree. Oh, we did.
Sorry for that.
No problem.
No, thank you, commissioners. If there's no further comments, we'll be moving on to item number 12, Planning and Zoning Department Report. Ms. Quimito?
So just a couple of items. I already mentioned the comprehensive plan update. We are meeting with the developers this week and hopefully setting down some dates for the next public meetings, aiming for March. The sidewalks Phase 2 plan is also underway. They're currently working on Stedham. Phase 3 is on track to be publicized in mid-February and aiming for March letting. The consultant will be working with staff to set those dates. Excuse me. Also made mention earlier was our Unified Development Code. So that's going to be a complete rewrite of all of the ordinances that are related to development in the community. That is already open and being advertised. That will close on February 2nd, and hopefully we'll be able to execute an agreement with the winning proposal in March. I don't want to drag on the update too much farther, but another very important item. At a previous meeting, there was a couple of abstentions due to conflict of interest, and in an update and training for ethics that I participated in, a note was made that we actually do need some affidavit on file noting your conflict of interest and your abstention. So there is actually a form that is required for us to file with the city clerk if you should find yourself in that situation. And we have copies of those for staff, and it's okay if we turn them in. It's just important that we have them on file. It would also be convenient if you're, to just have it be a standing thing if you have the conflict of interest, it's maybe attached to something that could affect a couple of cases down the line. With that,
Yeah, just a question. Do you all remember filling out those forms when you were appointed? Did you have to fill out a conflict of interest questionnaire?
No.
I don't remember.
Or after?
Very vaguely, yeah.
Okay. So if you don't, and I think Lorraine has copies here as well that she can give you. But read over them, and it kind of explains to what is a conflict of interest. It's got different categories. One of the easiest ones is like, okay, I think that is a situation where if you have your employer that comes here in a meeting and say, well, you know what, I work with those guys. And it's actually, it's never too late to mention a conflict. So, you try to fill out these forms ahead of time, but sometimes you just don't know that something will come up. Like a relative shows up at a meeting, you didn't know that they were going to ask for something. So always mention it up front. It's never too late to do it. In that case, then you want to take yourself out of the voting and the discussion on that. And even after the fact, too, is that if there's something after the meeting, let us know and we can address it. So these forms require, I think, that they be filled out and notarized or signed in front of the city clerk, something like that. They need to be recorded, so you'd have to come do it with the city clerk. But I would say, look through the forms, and if you have a conflict, fill one out, file it with the city clerk, and you just hand it to them. I think it just stands up, so it's not complicated.
And just, I guess a question is, that's for abstaining on a certain item for like a replat, not a procedural vote, like the approval of agenda or the minutes from the month before, or the meeting before, the last meeting's minutes? Or that's abstaining on a specific item, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are fine. I mean, you could still vote on those, but I think you're asking me that if there was like a vote last time on something, I guess involving one of your interests, if you can vote on the minutes, is that what you're asking?
No, the procedural ones that are more like the consent agenda, the minutes. I didn't attend last week's meeting, so I don't feel comfortable
Oh, okay.
approving
okay.
those minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't need to fill out a form for that or anything. That's just,
So for example, I don't know if I can talk about this, but like last time that I abstained from it,
yeah.
then I voted on the minutes this week. Is that something that I have to?
No, I think you're fine. I mean, you abstained from that original discussion.
Okay.
So, but yeah, and thank you for telling us at least at that time as well that, because you may not realize until you read the agenda that night where you see somebody here like, oh, I didn't know there was a conflict. Just mention it and then you can excuse yourself from that at least item. You're fine. So, again, it's one of those things too where you want to look fair and impartial because it may not be the person that's the applicant questioning you, but it's the next person that might be questioning that, wait a minute, you approved a variance for that guy, but you didn't approve it for me, and you know that guy, and you're doing this because, and there's favoritism, so that's why you always want to remove any favoritism, and, you guys, I know are volunteers, so it's like, it's a lot to deal with, but it's just, you want to be careful with that if anybody ever questions it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Camino. Moving on to item number 13, consider and take action on the adjournment of this meeting. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion made by Andrew Arroyos to adjourn, second by Julie Dominguez. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstain? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 7:05. Thank you all for coming and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.